And welcome back. So I figured I'd make a little bit of a lighting video because we got a little bit of lighting work to do on this truck. As you remember, we spoke about when we got our parts ram in, because it had a nicer set of aftermarket LED tails that you see here in lieu of the incandescents that were on here. I figured, you know, since those were working, why not go ahead and just take them off our parts ram and put them on old candy apple here. And what you can see here is kind of interesting. The way these work is that they've got a standard light bulb base in it, so it'll plug into your factory wiring. But right here, but you can see the connector. So it has the kind of same connector that the bulb base would. It just plugs into the socket, and then you can twist lock the socket into place there. Now it has a extra little pigtail of a wire coming out, which is meant to plug into a resistor pack that you see here. And I found these installed behind the lights in our parts ram. Went ahead and just basically detached them. They were just thankfully held on with just some double-sided tape, you know, which we'll replace. We got some our 3M body panel double-sided tape, so that should be good enough to hold it. So what these resistors packs do is they simulate basically the resistive load of a light bulb when the lights are functioning, so that way you don't get a bulb out indicator on the dash. So very similar to if you've watched our LED 5th gen to 4th gen LED tail conversion that we did on our 2500, very similar to that. The wiring harness adapter that came with that also had a resistor pack on it to basically do the same thing. It's to keep the, you know, the trucks that want to see a resistive load on there, still give them that resistive load they're looking for, so you don't throw an error. Now we took the liberty up while we had this thing apart of just, as you can see here, cleaning up all the dirt and the gunk that was behind this. And like everything else on this truck, you know, it's just a lot of silt and road grime, but it looks much better than what it did. So we're going to put some double-sided tape on our resistors here, kind of get them installed basically right up here into the same spot that the previous owner did on our parts ram, and get everything connected. Now for the front headlights, if you remember, I made mention that I thought I had an older set of front lights that we could use to replace them. Now these are the factory ones that are currently on the truck now. It's the single lamp headlights. So you got high and low beam and a single lamp, and then of course you have your directional here, obviously. But you can, as we saw in previous videos, you can do a restoration on these, but you know, I've seen where the restorations sometimes work, sometimes don't work, and sometimes even when you do it and you seal it up, within 6 months to a year, it's back to looking dingy again. So I dug through the attic and found in storage a pair of these beauties. What you're seeing here is the old headlights off of the 2016 2500, which you've seen in our previous videos when we were doing the engine modifications. These will fit our 1500, and interesting enough, the headlights that we converted to HID projectors in our 2500 actually came out of a Ram 1500. They were single beams like these, except they were black, and I sent them to a place called retroshop.us, and they took the halogen projector out and put an HID projector in and turned them into a true set of HIDs. But what we're going to do on this truck is, yes, you'll notice that even though we're going from a what they consider dual headlight to a quad headlight, meaning we're going to have 4 headlights because the high and low beam are going to be split on each side. From what I can find online, these will plug directly into the factory harness. No wiring modifications needed, with one exception. Some individuals do this via a wiring hack, but on a quad headlight system, normally when you click on the high beam, it'll keep the low beam on as well. Well, this truck's body computer is set up to look for a dual headlight setup, meaning it won't leave the low beam on with the high beam. From my understanding, also from digging around, is that it looks like we may have the option within our AlphaOBD software to tell the truck it has quad headlights installed instead of duals. And then that should allow us, once we turn the high beams on, it'll also leave the low beam element lit at the same time. So I'll definitely bring you along for that one. So what I want to do first, and you'll remember in a previous video on our 2009 build, we stole some of these clips off of Candy Apple here to do on our 2009. And in a previous parts video, I showed you this little box of aftermarket clips. There's the number there. And these will just serve as nice replacements. They just push into here like that, and it gives this part of the tail light assembly the item it needs in order to clip into it. Let's grab another one of these. So yes, when you order them, they come as a whole box, meaning that 15 clips will probably be enough to last your lifetime. But I'm going to continue to work on this. I'm going to get these resistors mounted, and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see I went ahead on the back of our light here and just went ahead and installed our bulb bases just so they're locked in place. Previous owner, for whatever reason, didn't have these twisted and locked in place. When you do that, it kind of, takes all the wiring inside of here and gets pulled on and dangled on by the factory connector. But oh well. You can see our resistor block, which we've got double-sided stickied in place like we covered earlier. Now it's just a matter of connecting our harness wiring to our bulb bases and that one resistive lead, and we can get this thing installed. So I'll bring it back in a moment. And welcome back. So I just want to show you what I'm referring to here. So just as I found on various internet postings, it is true, at least for the wiring harness. Now we still have to test this, but you can see we got a factory harness here. So just two connections, because we had a dual headlight set up, and we're going to go to a quad. But we can see that this connector plugs right in to our new headlight assembly, no issues. And also this connector, hopefully you heard that. You can hear that locks in as well. Again, no issues. And let's go ahead and push in our lock tabs. Got it. That one's in as well. This wiring harness goes over here on this hold down, and this wiring harness right here even plugs into the little holding point on the headlight assembly itself. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just place this in here. I'm not going to install the bolts yet because I'm waiting for a new release tab to come in, because the one that was in here was missing, and the only one our parts ram had was actually broken. But just to show you here, that these in fact will go into place. As you can see there, I need to get that rear pin to seat, but again, no issue with the fitment. Bolt holes line up with what's inside the frame here. Now, depending on your make, model, and trim level, you may have one of these coarse looking bolts at the top and one at the bottom that hold the assembly in, or you may end up with just one of these at the top and kind of more of a threaded type machine bolt that's down here at the bottom with a little bit of an adjustment on it. My 2016 has got two different bolts actually on these headlight assemblies. The lower one isn't one of these coarse ones. But in case you lose or are missing one of those bolts, to show you here, that is the Mopar part number for that kind of coarse threaded bolts. And these are, at least on a 1500, again, occasionally used for the top and the bottom of the headlight assembly, as well as the grill also gets screwed in on the far left and far right hand corners with these coarse threaded bolts. And that's why I bought a couple of these, because we had to borrow some of the ones that mount the grill in to put back in our 2009. So again, we're just going to kind of test this out now. I'll come back and, you know, finish mounting this later, but I just kind of want to get it in here roughly again to show you that absolutely no issue with the fitment. So again, these were a set of quad headlights. These are OEM ones. You can see they're already painted and blacked out, which is kind of cool because they come from the factory that way. So this is a quad set of headlights off of a 2016 2500 going into a 2012 1500. So it just goes to show you how many years, you know, they basically kept the part the same. Doesn't matter whether this is a 1500 headlight assembly or a 2500 headlight assembly, at least the fitment is the same. Now, where you may run into we're going to have an electrical issue here that we need to address. Hopefully we can address it with ODB. And that, again, just to reiterate what we said earlier, this is a quad headlight assembly. Normally when you would turn high beam on, it would leave the low beam on at the same time. What's going to happen here, because this truck is set up for dual headlights, we go to turn the high beam on, it's going to turn the low beam off. Now, according to what I can find on the internet, again, it's solvable by modifying the wiring harness slightly with a relay and the diode to get it to do it. But a lot of people are saying that you should be able to use the AlphaOBD software that we made the changes for the heated and ventilated seats. We should be able to use that same utility to come in here and change the configuration of the truck and tell it that it has the quad headlights in it now. So when we're done, when we go to high beam, it should leave both elements lit at that point. So this is what we're going to go, and we'll try it out, and hopefully this will work. Now, future, to be fair, future versions of this truck, when we start, you know, really doing the mechanical side of it and the transmission side of it and rear def and the other things that we have planned, eventually we'll come back here and put in a full set of HID projectors, much like we did in our 2500. But these will be a far cry better than what was in here, largely because you can see it's nice, still very clear, very good headlight to see through. You know, it's not been oxidized and faded. And I think I had these on the 2016 out there for maybe a year and a half, and we changed them out to HID projectors. Ever since then, these have just been kind of sitting in the attic. So it'll be nice to kind of put them to use. So with that being said, let's go ahead and connect some battery power and verify our headlight functionality. Okay, these are just standard low beams. Okay, you can see we got one on there. We got our marker light / turn signal light on that side. We got our headlight, marker light. So that's looking good. And then we're going to check out the back here, because we put our LED tails in the previous clip, if you remember. So you can see we got our stoplight illuminated. That's good. We should. We got our stoplight on our other side. And I forgot to show that earlier. We were showing these installed, but just so you get a picture of it being completely installed. Much better looking than the standard incandescent lenses, in my opinion. Okay, so that being said, let's turn our headlights off and turn our hazards on. So, yep, we can see this one here blinking. You can see that blink on the wall over there for our passenger front. Let's take a look at our rears, see how those look. Oh, those LEDs make such a difference. Yeah, you can see we're flashing here. That's good. And we're flashing there. Beautiful. Now, what typically happens is that, yes, as you see here, normally on like a standard Ram, this is your turn signaling to stop, obviously. Now, when you get 5th generation tails, like we did with our 2500 upgrade, there was an option when I ordered the adapter wiring harness that what's going to happen is when we do the 5th generation upgrade, we're actually going to have amber in here that's going to flash for the turn signal in lieu of red. But haven't tested it yet, but the only other one to test is going to be the rear backup on it. But so far so good. The truck's not complaining about there being a bulb out in the rear, which is nice. That means those resistors are doing their job. So let's turn our hazards off, and what I'm going to do is just put the key in the ignition, at least to the accessories, and then turn the headlights on, turn our high beams on. Yeah, you see it's only leaving the bottom light on and turning off the upper, so we need to get in there and make a configuration change so we can get both of these to stay on with high beam, because again, it's thinking it's got a dual headlight setup in which you would have both elements in a bulb, and then typically what it would do is do exactly that. It would turn a high beam element on and turn the low beam element off. But in this setup, let me stop that beeping for you. But in this setup, what we need it to do is turn both elements on to serve as the high beam element. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get our laptop powered up, get our ODB software set up. I'm going to poke around it first before I bring you back to determine where that setting's at. I've seen postings where they say that it's inside of the body control module, but rather than you watching me hunt and peck through a bunch of stuff, I'll find it first, I'll bring it back, and then we'll make the change and we'll see if that takes care of it. So one moment. And welcome back. So I got you zoomed in on the screen here and just kind of show you where I'm at. I think I found the option here is inside of the AlphaOBD software. Once you're connected to the body computer, and we're back into the advanced diagnostics and the car configuration change screen, up at the bottom I just started typing in the word headlight. It came up with some options for us. Again, we're inside the what they call the body computer. And let's see here. So let's see what we have here. Configurable outputs, 3rd row headrest, quad headlamps enabled. So that sounds like that's the parameter that we're needing, is the option for quad headlamps enabled. Bi-xenon headlamps, which we don't have. Headlamp level, motor polarity, auto headlamp enabled, which is already enabled on this truck. Yeah, headlamp level, automatic leveling. Okay, so we don't want any of that. What we want is quad headlamps enable, start. Okay, so you can see that once we click start, it came back and pulled up what the current setting is, which is not set. So we're going to change that to be set. And then we're going to hit next. And then start. Okay, let's see, did that take? Okay, because the current state of the component is set. I saw something flash up on the screen there. I'm trying to see if I can see it again. Okay, procedure complete. That's what I wanted to see. I accidentally clicked on it, not giving it its time to process. Alright, cool. So that is set according to that. So we're going to come back to status and faults. I'm sorry, no, start. And I'm going to disconnect like I normally do. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to key it off for 30 seconds like they recommend. I'll stop the video just so you're not watching this for 30 seconds. And I'll bring you back and we'll see if that addressed our issue. One moment. Okay, welcome back. So let's give this a shot. Again, just going to go into the on position here, turn our headlights on. So we've got, let's just verify that we've got, like we had before, this is non-high beam. Yep, so we got just our upper light only, no lower. Turn our high beams on. Beautiful. That took care of it. Oh, sorry, don't mean to blind you there. So you can see we got both upper and lower elements on that assembly now for our high beams, and both upper and lower on for that one. So awesome. That did fix it. So we'll turn those off, turn our headlights back off, and go ahead and so we don't start beeping there. All right, so beautiful. So to summarize, what we've done thus far is went ahead and switched out our incandescent incandescent tails to these aftermarket LED tails, mainly because they were on the parts truck when the parts truck showed up. Seems to be a very nice housing, so you know, why not use it? Unfortunately, the projector, the aftermarket projectors that it looks like that somebody had put on there, only one of the two lenses was in the bed of the truck when it came from the auction, and it was already full of water. So someone, you know, unfortunately that one's ruined and the other one's long since missing. I would have liked to have gotten a set of OEM projectors, which would have been the halogen ones, which would have worked for now, because those halogen ones can always be shipped off to like retroshop.us and they can do a full conversion. But either way, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And also what we did in this video was, as you saw, remove those very scratched, very faded, very scratched, very faded lenses that would have been hard to see through, and just utilized a set of quad headlights that we had from our 2016 that were just sitting in storage. So we went from a dual headlight setup to a quad headlight setup. No modifications that you saw were needed to the factory wiring harness to pull that off. The only thing we needed to do was utilize the AlphaOBD software that you saw us use to go in there and make a change to the body computer to tell it that the quad headlights are now enabled. And then that fixed the issue where once it's on high beam, it keeps both upper and lower elements illuminated as it should. So with that being said, hopefully you found this helpful. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider to do so. I think we're within like 5 subscribers of hitting that 1,500 milestone mark, and like I said, the channel's growing at a very nice pace. I'm very happy with channel growth at this point. Always would be happy for more growth, I'm sure, as any creator out there would be. But if you have not subscribed already, please consider doing so. For those of you who have, I do thank you. And obviously, and as I said before, we've got a lot more on this truck to come, as you well know. We still have the performance updates to do to the engine. We have, you know, updates to do to the transmission and updates to do to the rear differential. So we've got a lot of content to come. Now that we've got headlights in here, which will, you know, make it legal and make it able to pass its inspection, we can now work on towards, like I said earlier, getting the factory recall taken care of, which has to do with the shift interlock. A lot of these older Rams have an issue where if you have the key in the ignition and you leave your foot on the brake, or if the brake lights are engaged for too long, the solenoid inside the shifting column that unlocks the shifter or keeps you from shifting it unless your foot's in the brake can overheat. And if it overheats, it can stick disabled, which would allow you to drop the truck into gear without your foot on the brake. So we need to get it in to get that factory recall taken care of. Now, as I stated earlier, they may wipe out the changes we did, and we'll just have to come back into AlphaOBD and put those changes back in. But the changes that we did were just to enable the heated and ventilated seats, and as you just saw, tell it that it has quad headlights installed now instead of dual headlights installed. But again, I'm rambling just to let you know that obviously, once again, we've got a lot more on this truck to come. So please stay tuned for that one, and I will bring you back for the next one, which will more than likely be, we're going to do an oil change service on this old girl, because there's no telling when the last time it was done. So we want to get some nice clean oil on here and a decent filter, and then we'll get it out of here, take it for a rip, get it to pass its necessary emissions and get it to run its internal emissions checks that it needs to do and pass, that the inspection place will look for. So that'll be the next deal. I'll bring it back, we'll do an oil change, then we'll get it out, take some test drives on it, and then we'll go from there. And with that being said, I'll bring you back for the next one. Thank you much. Bye.